Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the lecture on utility analysis. So these are the topics we will be covering under the topic of utility. So first we will start with the definition, and then we will clarify ourselves between the utility and usefulness, and then we'll get into the nature and types of utility and how it is measured and what are its economic types and what is the laws behind the utility, especially law of diminishing marginal utility and equi-marginal utility analysis. So when we define utility, utility can be stated as the want satisfying quality in a product. So it's the ability of the product to satisfy the human need. So yeah, as we say, it is the ability of the product to satisfy the human need. Will it have a usefulness or will it is a utility? That is the two words, utility and usefulness, are contradictory or sound similar and have similar meaning, but will be having different values. Example, when we say utility, it doesn't have any ethical and moral significance. When we say about the product knife, it has a utility of chopping, dicing, whatever we can cook, we can use it for cooking, we can use it for cutting the branches. Whether it is, and if it is on wrong person's hand, it will do harmful things. If it is on the hands of a doctor, it will save lives. So all these will be coming into the term called utility. But usefulness will say what it is used desired for. Example, for a doctor, the usefulness of knife is saving the life or doing the operations and saving the life. And the usefulness of a knife in a person in the kitchen or a chef is about the dicing and chopping of vegetables for cooking and satisfying the hunger of people. Like that, the usefulness will be having a moral and ethical values, and it will be more accurate. And that's what we can say about the usefulness and utility. So utility in simple, whatever the uses it has, it comes under utility. Usefulness, it is having a moral, it is having a nearly useful thing, or it is a deadly thing. All this analysis will be done, and then we will say it is useful. So when we say about utility, we will confuse with the pleasure, because as the definition says, it's a want satisfying thing. So utilities is a measurement. You get often confused with pleasure, but utility is the means of measuring the pleasure. Okay, it doesn't say about the pleasure. Actually, we say about sometimes utility will not be giving you pleasure. Example, here's a treatment of medicine is given here. Quinine, it is used for treating the malaria. Has a high utility and it has a usefulness. But if you want to say about the pleasure, if you take it, your tongue will sore like anything. So you don't give you pleasure. It will give you discomfort in the form of having a bitter taste in your tongue. So it will not say it will be associated with pleasure, but it can be said with pleasure. So it is just, so what is it? It is a satisfaction? No, it is not a satisfaction. It is the measure or quality in the satisfaction. How much you got satisfied. That's what the utility is about. So how what the utility is about? It's about subjective. That means it depends on person to person, a time to time, and situation to situation, place to place, and form to form. So these are all the types of utility. We will discuss this clearly in the next few coming slides. So how it becomes subjective, consumer domains gives the utility for the commodity, varies from individual to individual. As I told you in the previous example of knife, for a doctor, it's a life-saving tool. On a wrong person, it's a life-taking tool. On a chef, on a hand of chef, it is a tool which satisfies the hunger, used for satisfying the hunger. It's just an additional tool which they use. So based on the nature and the availability, it will be changing. On speaking on the types of utility, there are several types based on economical factors or form. We will say, or generally we say utility in three stages. On stages, we will say initial utility, total utility, zero utility, negative utility, and marginal utility. And forms, so we have, say, each have different values. Say when it is on first analysis, for first consideration, this initial utility. On total, it is called as a total utility. Or if it is having no usage, then it is called as a, or it is not satisfying any desire or want, it is called as zero utility. Similarly, negative utility, it is creating a dissatisfaction or discomfort instead of creating a comfort or satisfaction. That is called negative utility. Marginal utility. This is also will come under the stages of utility. So this marginal utility says about the addition to the total utility with the addition of commodities. Okay, that's what we say. So example, a person is feeling hungry. He want to have food. So say he had first dosa. Because of his hunger, he will feel good. After that, another dosa. Okay, he is satisfied with his hunger. If that is how much is that additional dosa is satisfying his hunger, that is what it says about the marginal utility. And how much his hunger is satisfied is the measure of utility. We can say this is one of the colloquial form we can say about utilities. On the form of type of utility in economic aspect, we will say on form utility, place, time, profession, all this stuff. So form utility, we can say, example, if it is just a tree, it is for just for it will have some utility. And it was cut down and made into logs. It has certain utilities. And that log was transferred into a chair or stable, then it has some other utilities. So based on change in form and nature, it's called we can define. So that's why we can say with here with each change in form there will be a cost associated or some values associated with it. Examples. So that things will be considered. And place usually analyzing the utility with place. Example, a desert region, there is no use of having a raincoat. The raincoat usage in a desert region is waste and there is no utility for it. But in a place where there is very heavily raining, there the utility is high for a raincoat. Like this, with place to place, time to time, person to person, position of utility. So all this will be, and person to person who is owning the utility product. Based on this, the utility will be changing. And while they are using, that will have some economic importance too. That is what the types of utility says about. And measurement of utility. In measurement of utility, we say about utility, and it's a quality term. So when it comes to quality term, we must measure it. We cannot measure it exactly, like what is the value, but it because it changes with person to person, time to time, and all this stuff. So what are the common methods of measuring utility? We have two methods. One is cardinal and the second one is ordinal. So the cardinal method will gives a numerical value assigned just for randomly, and ordinal will be on ranking. Out of 10, what will be your rank? Like that. So Just cardinal utility will give the satisfaction out of 100. They can give it for one person, may give it for out of 100, second person will be giving for out of 10. All this they will give a random numbers out of it, and what they will say this. But ordinal method will say what is the rank. Just give the ranks 1 to 10. Out of this 10, give your rating. Like this, giving a rating in measurement of utility. So you have the knowledge of random numbers with numerical values, so you can measure in analysis. You can analyze the utility using. In ordinal method, it will just rank, so it will be simplified and easily comparable, and how it is easily differs with different person to person, you can easily identify. So, law of diminishing marginal utility. So, the additional benefit which a person derives from given increase in the stock of anything will diminishes the growth of stock he has. So, this is what the statement of law of marginal utility. So, what it says, additionally, when you give the utility value for the product or the thing which he has will get reduced. Example, a person is having only one smartphone. If that smartphone become valuable for him. But if the smartphone counts increase to 2, it will be somewhat useful. If it goes on increasing like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, so it becomes useless. So that's what this law, that's what the simplest explanation of this law of diminishing marginal utility is. So this table says about the satisfaction a person experience with eating of rasagullas. Okay, so rasagullas is a sweet which people used to have, they used to eat. Okay, so if he has the first one, he feels very delighted. But when it's second, yeah, it will come. So, so that first delightness and the experience he has will be getting reduced with the second one. Simultaneously, if it goes and goes on and on, at one point he will be get stagnant. So he just won't want to taste it anymore at that moment. So it becomes his utility becomes zero here, and that becomes a zero utility point. So we will just see the corresponding points. Yeah, this point we see that 0 point is marginal utility is 0, and there is no contribution towards him in the total utility. That is called as a zero utility point, and the additional values is marginal utility, and the initial value it has is the total utility, and the negative utility is he don't want to have it but he is having. That's what we have in negative utility. So this is when given here. So when it is what the diagrammatic representation of the marginal utility, whenever the quantity is getting increased and increased, the utility value will be getting decreased. A total value will be increasing and get decreased. So this is what being given here. The two plots of marginal utility and total utility is been given here. This is about the table we have earlier. So what are the limitations? Dissimilar product. If the products are dissimilar, then he might have. If there is a 3 or 4 kinds of sweet and he is having experiencing different sweets, he will be a person will be having motivated to taste all the sweets. But if there is only sweets and all, but if now and then the spicy items is also there, then he won't feel saturated with the sweets. And very small unit, that means for a for a person who is very thirsty, a tablespoon of water won't satisfy him. If he will feel he want more and more and more, but a bottle can of water will satisfy him. If you say to have drink 2 can of water, then he won't. First can he will drink, but the second can he won't. That's what it's about. And rare collection, abnormal persons, and another person's stock and all the stuff are some of the limitations and exceptions.